Hello, everyone. My name is Judge Frank Caprio, and in over 40 years of sitting on this bench, I have seen moments that would shake even the strongest people to their core. I have watched individuals walk into this courtroom with fear in their eyes, others with regret weighing heavily on their shoulders, and some with confidence so strong it borders on arrogance. Over time, I have learned that the courtroom is not just a place where laws are applied. It is a place where truth is revealed. And sometimes, that truth is uncomfortable. Sometimes, it exposes not just actions, but character. What I am about to share with you today is not just a case. It is a powerful reminder of what justice truly means when everything else tries to stand in its way. It was a Monday morning in Providence. One of those mornings where everything seems routine on the surface. The courthouse was already filled with quiet conversations, footsteps echoing through the hallways, and the usual rhythm of a working day. My clerk handed me the docket, and I began reviewing the cases one by one. Most of them were ordinary, minor traffic violations, small disputes, nothing out of the usual flow. But then I noticed one name that made me pause. Maximilian Ashford. It wasn't just the name, it was the detail next to it. Represented by private counsel. In my experience, people rarely bring expensive attorneys for simple cases. That small detail told me something important. This case had a story behind it. Before the defendant even entered the courtroom, a woman quietly walked in and sat down in the front row. She didn't draw attention to herself. She didn't speak, but her presence was impossible to ignore. Her name was Dorothy Simmons. She wore a simple cardigan, slightly worn at the sleeve, and she held a folder tightly against her chest, almost as if letting go of it would cause everything to fall apart. There was a heaviness in her expression, a kind of exhaustion that cannot be explained by a single bad day. It was the kind of exhaustion that builds over years of struggle, responsibility, and silent endurance. Her son, Marcus Simmons, was not present that morning, but his story filled every corner of that courtroom. Marcus was a veteran who had served his country with honor through 2 difficult tours overseas. He came home carrying more than just memories. He carried injuries that would stay with him for life. Despite everything, he chose to rebuild. He became a father, a provider, a man who refused to let hardship define him. Every morning he woke up early, prepared his daughter's breakfast, took care of her medical needs, and went to work without complaint. He lived a life built on discipline, responsibility, and quiet strength. But then came a night that would change everything in an instant. Marcus was driving home after a long day, exhausted but focused, thinking only about getting back to his daughter. He was just minutes away from home when suddenly, out of nowhere, a high-performance sports car came speeding through the intersection. It ignored the red light completely and collided with his vehicle with devastating force. The impact was violent, spinning his truck and leaving him injured and disoriented. In that single moment, everything he had worked so hard to maintain was thrown into chaos. What happened next made the situation even more painful. The driver of that car did not stop. He did not step out to check if Marcus was alive. He did not call for help. Instead, he drove away, leaving behind destruction and a man struggling to recover. That driver was Maximilian Ashford, a young man raised in privilege, surrounded by luxury, and accustomed to a life where consequences rarely reached him. In his world, problems could be handled, fixed, or simply made to disappear. When officers eventually located him, they did not find a man in shock or remorse. They found him in a private club, surrounded by friends, continuing his night as though nothing had happened. He was laughing, relaxed, completely detached from the reality of what he had done. And when confronted, his first instinct was not concern. It was entitlement. He asked if they knew who his father was, as if that single fact could change everything. When Maximilian entered the courtroom, his appearance told a story of its own. He was well-dressed, confident, and composed, carrying himself like someone who had never truly faced consequences before. His posture, his expression, even the way he looked around the room, it all suggested that he believed this was just a formality. Just another situation that would be handled, managed, and ultimately erased. As the hearing began, Officer Ferrer took the stand and calmly described everything she had witnessed. She spoke with clarity and professionalism, outlining the events step by step. But then she shared something that shifted the entire atmosphere of the courtroom. When she informed the defendant that the victim had been seriously injured, he did not ask if the man was okay. He did not show concern. Instead, he asked what it would take to make the situation disappear. The courtroom fell into a deep, heavy silence. It wasn't just the words, it was the meaning behind them. When I asked him directly about it, he did not deny it. Instead, he looked at me and said something that revealed everything about his mindset. Everyone has a price. In that moment, it became clear that this case was no longer about a simple incident. It was about a belief that everything, including justice, could be bought. As more evidence was presented, the situation became even more troubling. Social media posts made shortly after the crash showed him laughing, joking, and dismissing the incident as if it were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. These posts were made while the victim was in the hospital, receiving treatment for serious injuries. The contrast between those two realities was impossible to ignore. What followed surprised everyone. He did not defend his son. He did not attempt to excuse the behavior. Instead, he admitted fault, not for the incident itself, but for the environment that allowed it to happen. He acknowledged that his son had been shielded from consequences for too long, and that this moment was the result of those choices. With that admission, everything changed. The confidence that once filled the defendant's posture began to fade. For the first time, he appeared uncertain, as though he was finally understanding that this situation could not be controlled or avoided. When it came time to deliver my decision, I spoke not with anger, but with clarity. I explained that the law does not recognize wealth or status. It recognizes actions. I outlined the consequences, penalties, restrictions, and a requirement that he engage in meaningful service within the same community affected by his actions. The sentence was not designed to humiliate, but to teach. It was meant to place him in environments where he would see lives different from his own, where he would understand responsibility, and where he would be forced to confront the impact of his decisions. In the months that followed, the victim slowly began to recover. It was not easy, and it was not quick, but progress was made. The community stepped forward with support, showing compassion in ways that reminded everyone that humanity still matters. Meanwhile, the young man who once believed he was untouchable began showing up consistently, fulfilling his obligations and experiencing a world he had never truly seen before. And that is where this story leaves us. Not with perfection, but with possibility. Because justice is not about revenge. It is about truth, accountability, and the chance for change. That day, in that courtroom, one thing became absolutely clear. No amount of money, power, or influence can stand above the law when it is applied with integrity. And as long as I sit on this bench, that will never change. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something real, then take a moment to support the channel. Hit that like button because it helps this message reach more people. Leave a comment below. I want to know what you think about this case. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because the next story might impact you even more than this one. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next case.